Come on down to Boost Mobile and turn your tax refund into 6 months of savings?
Nope, all wrong. You're on the radio touting Boost Mobile's 5G network. You gotta use your radio voice, like this. Come on down to Boost Mobile and get 6 months free when you buy 6 months on our best unlimited plans. Now you go.
This is just how my voice sounds.
Just say it like you mean it.
Okay.
Plus, enter to win up to $10,000 and double your tax refund.
Oh, my.
Requires upfront payment. Taxes and fees extra. Terms and exclusions apply. Visit boostmobile.com for full offer terms and sweeps details.
On average, you'll have to wait 31 days to see an OBGYN. And if you're dealing with an infection or outbreak, you know you need care fast. That's where WISP comes in. Connect with a U.S. licensed provider online and pick up safe, effective treatment at your local pharmacy that same day. Plus, get birth control and more delivered in all 50 states. Take control with comprehensive sexual and reproductive care, all from your phone. WISP. That's HelloWisp.com. The waiting room can wait.
Did you know 1 in 2 women wear the wrong foundation? Matching foundation is hard, but Il Maquillage makes it easy. Take the Power Match quiz to find a perfect match in seconds, customized to your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 5-star reviews, Woke Up Like This is our best-selling foundation for a reason. Available in 50 shades of weightless natural coverage. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Just pay shipping. Take the quiz at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
Doors closing.
Morning, Ellie. Hey, check this out. See that woman over there? She's got her legs wrapped up in a Cubs jacket. She's definitely not wearing any pants.
Wow, that's a choice. At least she's got her own chair, not one of those plastic ones.
True, but I mean, come on. The Cubs are off to a decent start this season. They deserve more respect than to be used as leg warmers.
Hey, maybe she's saving her good jacket to wear on her legs during the playoffs.
Never a dull moment, right?
This is Oakland. This is a Blue train to downtown and O'Hare.
Phew, that was close. Almost missed the train. We're going to O'Hare, right?
Eventually. You're going to have to ride all the way to the end of the line.
That's okay, as long as we get there.
We're catching a flight back home to Toronto, but this city has been something else.
Good or bad?
Yeah, mostly good. But then we got caught in this crazy free to bed protest on Michigan Avenue.
Wait, they still have those?
Oh, yeah. And let me tell you, it was big. I got stuck in the crowd and couldn't leave. Next thing I know, I'm spending the rest of the day with them, having all sorts of adventures.
What kind of adventures do Tibetan protesters have?
Well, first, there was getting lost in the crowd. Then me and a nice teen couple ended up eating some questionable street food. I even ended up in a cop car at one point. Totally not my fault, by the way.
Yeah, she got a little too involved in the protest, but...
They might not survive the trip to O'Hare if they keep this up.
They seem like they can handle themselves.
This is Tales from the Blue Line by Auditory Anthology.
This tax season at Boost Mobile, when you buy 6 months on our best unlimited plans, we will give you the next 6 months for free.
Plus, enter to win up to $10,000 and double your tax refund.
Your refund, your rules. Requires upfront payment. Taxes and fees extra. Terms and exclusions apply. Visit boostmobile.com for full offer terms and sweeps details.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Cicero is next. Doors open on the left at Cicero.
So this story I heard back in nursing school. It's pretty creepy. There's this nurse who kept getting orders from a doctor, but when she looked him up, he wasn't on the hospital's current staff.
Just some rando acting like a doctor, or was it a ghost doctor?
No one knows.
The ER was buzzing with its usual late-night chaos. Gurneys wheeled in and out, monitors beeped incessantly. and nurses hurried between patients with charts in hand. It was the kind of overwhelming night shift that Nurse Sarah had become all too familiar with over her years working in the emergency room. Her feet ached, her head pounded, and there was no end in sight. She was attending to a young man with a broken arm when she first heard the voice. "Elevate his arm. Check his vitals again before the cast," the voice instructed calmly. It was clear, authoritative, and confident, but it wasn't coming from Dr. Harris, the lead physician currently juggling multiple trauma cases across the room. Sarah looked up, expecting to see one of the residents, or perhaps another attending physician nearby. But no one was around her patient. Confused, Sarah followed the voice's instructions anyway, elevating the man's arm and rechecking his vitals. The pulse was dropping, something the initial reading hadn't shown. A slight frown tugged at her lips as she worked quickly to stabilize him, wondering if exhaustion was causing her to hear things. Later that night, another trauma patient was rushed in, a woman with severe head trauma. Dr. Harris was caught up with another critical patient, so Sarah had to act fast. She was about to call for help when the same voice came again, calm and measured. "Apply pressure to the wound. Prep for a CT scan. Check her oxygen levels." Again, there was no doctor nearby, no one who could be giving these orders. But they were so specific, so precise, and Sarah knew she couldn't afford to second-guess them. She followed the instructions, and by the time Dr. Harris arrived, the woman's vitals had stabilized enough for transfer. Later, Sarah approached Dr. Harris during a brief lull, her nerves frayed from the strange events of the night. "Dr. Harris, did you hear anyone else giving orders in the ER earlier?" Dr. Harris barely looked up from his clipboard, clearly exhausted. "What are you talking about?" "There was a doctor. He was giving the instructions. I thought it might have been one of the new residents, but I didn't recognize him. Do we have anyone else on call tonight?" Dr. Harris let out a tired sigh. "No, Sarah, it's just us and the residents. Maybe you've been working too many shifts. Go take 5. Sarah nodded slowly, though her mind raced. She wasn't imagining it. The voice had been so clear, so direct. But if no one else had heard it, who was giving the orders? The break room was quiet, a stark contrast to the never-ending chaos of the ER. Sarah sat at one of the small round tables, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she desperately hoped would give her a second wind. She was tired, sure, but it wasn't just physical exhaustion that weighed her down. It was the strange voice, the orders that had come out of nowhere during her shift. As she stared into her cup, she overheard 2 older nurses, Nurse Evelyn and Nurse Clara, talking in hushed tones by the lockers. Sarah hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but something about their conversation caught her attention. "You know, I heard it happened again last week," Nurse Evelyn said quietly, her voice filled with a mix of curiosity and unease. "What did?" Nurse Clara asked, leaning in closer. "The phantom doctor. Apparently, one of the newer nurses swears she got orders from him during a trauma case, just like back in the day." Sarah perked up, her pulse quickening. She scooted her chair back a little, trying to listen without being too obvious. Nurse Clara let out a soft laugh. "The phantom doctor? You mean that old story about Dr. Mitchell?" Nurse Evelyn nodded solemnly. "Yeah, it's been a while since anyone's mentioned him, but it seems like he's back." Sarah couldn't stay silent any longer. She turned to the older nurses, curiosity and nerves pushing her to speak up. "I'm sorry, did you say phantom doctor?" Nurse Evelyn and Nurse Clara exchanged glances before Nurse Evelyn gestured for Sarah to sit with them. "Yeah, it's an old story. Dr. Mitchell was one of the best surgeons here. He died in a car accident just a few blocks from the hospital about 10 years ago." Sarah's brow furrowed. I think I might have heard him tonight. I was getting orders from someone, but when I looked, there was no one there." Nurse Evelyn's eyes widened slightly, but her voice remained calm. "That's him. People say he still shows up sometimes during the worst emergencies, when the ER is stretched thin. You're not the first nurse to hear him. He's been seen or heard, helping out, giving orders, making sure the patients get the right care, but no one ever sees his face." Sarah's skin prickled with unease. She had always been skeptical of ghost stories, but this was too close to home. "And this has been happening for how long?" "Since the accident," Nurse Evelyn said. "It doesn't happen often, only when the ER is really slammed, but when it does, whoever hears him swears by his help." Sarah sat back, trying to process what she had just heard. A doctor who had been dead for years was still giving orders in the ER? It seemed impossible, yet she couldn't deny what she had experienced. She stared into her coffee cup, the room suddenly feeling colder as the reality of what had happened started to sink in. It was another brutal night in the ER. A multi-car accident on the highway had flooded the hospital with trauma patients, and the staff were stretched thin, scrambling to keep up with the influx. Sarah barely had time to breathe as she moved from patient to patient, checking vitals, administering painkillers, and prepping for surgeries. In the chaos, she heard it again, the calm, commanding voice cutting through the noise. "Check his airways. He's not breathing properly. Move fast." Sarah's head whipped around, her eyes darting from one corner of the ER to the next. This time she wasn't going to let it go. She needed to see him, needed to know if what the other nurses had said was true. She followed the voice, moving quickly toward the trauma bay. A young man lay on the gurney, barely conscious, his breathing shallow. Sarah's heart raced as she obeyed the instructions, checking his airways and realizing that the tube was misaligned. She quickly adjusted it, and his breathing steadied. Relief washed over her for a moment, but the voice came again, firm and clear. "Move him to the OR, immediately!" Sarah looked up and caught a glimpse of him. A tall figure in a white lab coat, moving purposefully toward the operating room. She couldn't see his face. He was always just out of reach, his back to her as he weaved through the frantic ER. None of the other doctors or nurses seemed to notice him. Determined not to lose sight of him, Sarah followed, her breath catching as she weaved through the crowded room. She could hear Dr. Harris giving orders in the background, completely unaware of the phantom doctor's presence. "Who are you?" Sarah called out, her voice barely audible over the noise of the room. But the figure didn't turn around. He simply continued his work, guiding her with instructions she knew she had to follow. As Sarah approached the OR doors, the figure vanished, disappearing into the chaotic stream of doctors and patients as though he had never been there at all. She stood frozen for a moment, staring at the spot where he had disappeared, her pulse racing. There was no mistaking it now. She had seen him. The phantom doctor was real. The ER had finally quieted down after the chaos of the night. Sarah, still rattled by her encounter with the phantom doctor, couldn't shake the feeling that she needed answers. She had seen him. There was no doubt about it now. The mysterious figure in the white lab coat was real, and she had followed his instructions without question. But who was he, really? And why hadn't anyone else seen him? Determined to get to the bottom of it, Sarah found herself in the hospital's dimly lit archives later that night. It was a dusty, forgotten corner of the hospital, filled with old records, yellowed papers, and photographs that hadn't been touched in years. She combed through the files, searching for any clue that might explain who this doctor was. After what felt like hours, she finally found it. A folder marked Dr. Andrew Mitchell. Her heart pounded as she opened the file, revealing a photograph of the man she had seen in the ER. There he was, smiling warmly in the photo, dressed in the same white lab coat she had seen him wearing that night. Dr. Mitchell had been a brilliant surgeon, widely respected by his peers. But the file confirmed what Nurse Evelyn had told her. He had died tragically in a car accident on his way to the hospital over 10 years ago. The obituary clipped to the file detailed the accident, describing how Dr. Mitchell had been rushing to the hospital during a major emergency when his car was hit by a drunk driver. He never made it to the ER that night. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the final line of the obituary. Dr. Mitchell was known for his dedication to his patients and his ability to remain calm under pressure, even in the most stressful of situations. His loss was felt deeply by the entire hospital staff. She stared at the photograph, chills running down her spine. The man she had seen wasn't just a memory or a figment of her imagination. He had been guiding her, just as he had guided others during their most desperate moments. As she sat back in her chair, Sarah felt a strange mixture of fear and comfort. The phantom doctor was real, but his presence wasn't malevolent. He had been helping her, helping the ER just as he had done in life. Dr. Mitchell was still there, watching over the hospital, stepping in when things got too overwhelming. And though the thought of a ghostly doctor roaming the halls was unsettling, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. In the chaos of the ER, sometimes they needed all the help they could get, even if it came from beyond the grave.
Okay, I got to admit, that one was really good, Allie. Creepy, but in a good way.
Yeah, I always like that story. It's one of those that make you wonder, like, what if some people are just so dedicated that they never really leave?
I mean, if I ever needed help in the ER, I wouldn't mind having a ghost doctor looking out for me.
Exactly. It's eerie, but kind of comforting at the same time. Like, the guy's still doing his job even after all these years.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were more phantom stories out there from hospitals. Places like that probably have a ton of them.
Oh, I'm sure. And maybe I'll dig up one for you sometime.
Yep, same time tomorrow. Hey, say goodbye to the tourist couple for me.
This is Illinois Medical District. This is a Blue Line train to downtown and O'Hare.
Tales from the Blue Line by Auditory Anthology is written and produced by me, Keith Conrad. Your narrator is Darren Marlar. Be sure to check out Darren's award-winning paranormal podcast, Weird Darkness, available at WeirdDarkness.com and your podcast app of choice. Plus, there was a special guest appearance by Dan Levy from the Arguments podcast, also available at a podcast app of your choice. If you have a story you'd like to contribute to this series, you could visit submissions.soundconceptmedia.com or just follow the link in the show notes.
Will full coverage make me look cakey? Is my undertone neutral or is it cool? We get it. Finding the right foundation is hard. But with Il Maquillage, it's easy to find your perfect match online, customized for your unique skin tone and coverage needs. Plus, with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. With over 600,000 five-star reviews, this best-selling foundation is going viral for a reason. Take the Power Match quiz now at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
Renew your health and wellness purpose this new year with The Reset on Alo Moves, a curated weekly program of Pilates, strength, and step goals to kickstart your fitness journey. It's a 30-day week-by-week program, 3 days of Pilates, 2 days of strength, and 8,000 daily steps, plus bonus nutrition tips from Sakara. Plus, for only $99, you get a year's worth of access to Alo Moves on-demand, full studio experience wherever you are. Get moving today at alomoves.com.
When living with cancer, it's important to be informed and know what to expect. But finding the right information can feel overwhelming. That's why UnderstandCancerTogether.com is here to help. We've gathered practical information and resources based on where you are in your cancer journey, so that you can focus on the important conversations and decisions of today. UnderstandCancerTogether.com, helping you navigate life with cancer one moment at a time.